What up, what up? Can you guys hear me loud and clear? Microphone check 1, 2. What's up, Kevin? Okay. Hey, Kristen, good to see you. Miss Starglover, hello. Eminem, what up? Lakeside, good to see you. What's up, D? Vanessa, hello. Marlo, what's up? What's going on, Tina? Joe Moser, hello. At Venue 3, good to see you. You weren't supposed to see that. What's up, Jinx? Miss Persevere, good afternoon. What's up, Moon Crystal? How are you? You guys ready just to hang out? It's going to be a pretty open discussion, pretty chill live stream. Pulled about 40 minutes of content, and we're going to stop and go through all that whenever the conversation pieces pop up. And that'll be whenever we feel like it. So feel free to chime in if you want to call in. Let me know. Probably open that up towards the end. Misunderstood, good to see you. CJ Mack. Shout out to New Zealand. New Zealand is in the house. Welcome. Tattoo. What you been up to? Life is good. That's good to hear. Positive vibes. What's up, Miss Thang? How you doing? Yep, always good to see you, Kristen. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks, Kristen. Welcome to the crew. All right. So it looks like we have a full house. Should be a pretty casual stream today. We're going to be watching some interview clips from John Douglas, some other profilers, Paul Holes. What else did I put together? Oh, I collected some interviews from retired FBI agents who commented on the Delphi case. And they all bring up some very interesting points. No, not that I know of, MK. What's up, Tina? Hey, what's up, Cold Truth? Hope everybody's doing well. And Blind Squirrel, fashionably late. Wouldn't have it any other way. All right, on that note, let's do it.
Opportunist. He was always looking for the potential. If you see a couple, now's the time, and he would target them.
Why did you want to focus on Joseph Paul Franklin for this book?
He was one of the first cases, really the first case the FBI gave me at Quantico. All my cases up to that point were all serial murder cases, other forms of interpersonal violence, rape, child abductions. And so
You guys all know who John Douglas is, right? Who does not recognize this guy's face right there? It's kind of shiny. MK, I don't think so. Remember, the probable cause affidavit that was released was something that McClellan had put together. So he put that together in hopes that the judge would agree with him and saying, hey, look, we need to hide all this information over here. But this should be plenty, for the public. And she agreed. She put it out. And it was really more of the information that was in the search warrant, reasons why they should go search the property. And I think a lot that they left out was what they found during the search of Richard Allen's property.
So when this case came down, this was a major case for me. It would be a turning point where the Bureau, after this case, would say, hey, maybe this guy Douglas down there in Quantico, maybe he's got something going there. So it was, and he was so different. I was conducting interviews of serial murderers at
yeah, this is one of his more recent interviews. He doesn't talk about Delphi in this case, but in this interview, but he does talk a little bit about investigatory strategies and the process of all that. So I think it's interesting.
that time. And
What's up, Bogey?
there's usually a
What you up to?
sexual bent to these crimes, but with him, this was a racist serial killer. He was just so mobile. No one knew where he was, in the country. So this was like a mission impossible for me. And the reason I was asked was because of the
Vanessa says, if anybody has not watched Mindhunter, do it now. Yeah. And we were just talking in the Discord earlier about some of his great books that he's put out. This guy knows what he's talking about. He hasn't gotten it all right. There's some things with the John Bonet case that he kind of fumbled with, but overall, he's got a great record.
the unit chief in the Civil Rights Division, we were together at one time on a SWAT team, and then he knew about me and he knew the research I was doing.
SWAT team, damn.
He called me up to headquarters and said, "Hey, John, you think you can help us out on this case?" And I said, "I'll try, but I haven't done anything quite like this yet." Because most of my cases were unsub cases, unknown subject cases. Now, here is a known person and who just escaped.
I'm not very familiar with the case that he's referring to, but apparently this guy was some kind of racist, serial killer. He didn't like mixed couples. I think he targeted Jewish people and people of color.
From prison, and no one knows where he is in the United States. So is there anything that I've learned from these other cases that I was working and doing interviews that I could possibly apply to this case? So it's kind of interesting. I think it's interesting for the reader to see how a case like this and how we were able to track him down.
Based off your interview with him, your profile, what separated him from the other serial murderers?
Well, he was a racist serial killer, no remorse, but the other guys we interviewed had no remorse, either. He was different because his comfort zone, we call it was all over the country, where a lot of our offenders will stay.
Yeah, imagine a serial killer without an anchor point. He's not tied down to anything. He's just roaming around the country, just comfortable, in any kind of situation. Now that's like a 100% predator right there.
In one geographical area, with Franklin, he moved from city to city, and that's what made it so difficult, for law enforcement. Very, 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 very transient. Some of the things that he would tell us was similar to other serial.
Yeah, Miss Dog Lover says, I hope we can solve Evansdale and the Missy Beavers next. I don't know too much about Missy Beavers. I mean, I know the overview of it basically, but when it comes to Evansdale, now that case seems like it could be solved. Um, just from the short amount of space that the girls were taken and apparently the area where they were left. I mean, somebody familiar with that lake and that area, maybe even familiar to the family or that general location, very similar to Delphi.
Real offenders. These are crimes of power, crimes of anger. How can
What's up,
this
Shay?
inadequate nobody become a
True
somebody?
crime
So
with Shannon.
that
Hello.
kind of stuff was similar, but it was just this bitter hatred for Jews, hatred for blacks, interracial
What's up,
couples.
James?
And most of his crimes were planning, but occasionally he'll be very impulsive. If he would see say an interracial couple, he would strike.
An inside look at the hunt to catch. It's kind of an appropriate transition. One of America's most notorious serial killers. In 2018, Joseph DeAngelo was arrested for 13 murders and dozens of rapes that terrorized California in the 1970s and 1980s. DeAngelo, better known as the Golden State Killer, was caught by detectives using public DNA databases similar to Ancestry.com and 23andMe. It was among the first times the technique was used to catch a killer. And the idea came from Paul Holes, who spent nearly 30 years on the case working in the Contra Costa.
All right, ladies, calm down. Before we bring Paul Holes on, I need you to take a deep breath and just calm down.
The County Sheriff's Office and the District Attorney's Office. In his new book, Unmasked, My Life Solving America's Cold Cases, he talks about that case and many others. The book is out today. Paul, thank you for being here.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
The book is getting rave reviews. People love it. I love it. It starts like a Raymond Chandler novel, and it's more entertaining than fiction, yet also darker than the darkest noir. And it's got your personal life in it as well.
That's what I like.
It's really. So how did you decide how to balance these big public cases, that story, with this personal story you also wanted to tell?
Well, as I was reflecting upon my career, I started realizing it was important for me to write this book so the readers can understand that there's real crime behind this true crime content that they're consuming. There are victims that have suffered. There are professionals like myself that are traumatized by these types of cases. And so that's really what I was trying to put out there. And to put the personal stuff in, I mean, that was a lot of soul searching because I'm a very private person. And now it's like I'm opening myself up to the world.
It's out, and it is out there, Paul. But the thing that was so fascinating to me is that you didn't appear to realize the emotional trauma that you were going through, because you're seeing some very, very gruesome,
Kristen, I think he could
very
have helped.
grisly, despicable stuff. You didn't seem to realize the effect it was having on you.
No, I didn't, because as you walk in and you see something horrific, you bury it. I've got a job to do. And then I got to keep doing that job. And then another case comes up. But as time goes on, and I didn't find this out until after I retired, every time I'm working one of these cases and seeing that stuff or seeing the emotional impact on the families, it's a little nick. And then after decades, all those nicks, you start
your
bleeding
wives,
out.
Paul, they tried to tell you.
They did, and
we should say you're married now.
I am married now, and I have a first marriage and an ex-wife, and both of them have said, and indirectly, the relationships, the struggles. I wasn't realizing sometimes, why these struggles were existing.
Lawrence
Well, the job had an impact on me.
Well, you were doing the job for decades, so it would have an impact
on
you. And doing it well and finding all these people. It's got to be odd, though, too, that true crime has become just such a place that people turn to. You're even a sex symbol. I mean, there's a hashtag, Hot for Holes.
What is the better hashtags out there, I have to say.
There's T-shirts you can buy all over the internet.
It's also real.
Is it? I mean, and what does that say about our interest in these things?
Well, I think, for true crime, it is the ultimate human drama. And so, of course, everybody's fascinated by the stories behind these cases. But also, what's interesting to me is that the predominant consumer of true crime are women. And I've talked to many women, and it's like, for them, well, who are the victims that these stories are about? Well, it's usually women victims. And so they're like, I want to know what happened. I'm empathetic to that victim. I understand, I relate, but also, How can I avoid that happening to me?
Yes,
Right.
that's the thing. But cold cases are your thing. You said you became obsessed with the Golden State Killer, but cold cases are your thing. What makes you so good at this? What do you see that other people don't?
Yeah, Kristen, it's kind of like in his book, he talks about how he was so traumatized, but completely unaware of it. Like everything's turning dark, and um, so not even knowing what's causing your trauma, or not realizing, kind of knowing, but maybe even ignoring that.
Well, part of, my career is unique, having the forensic science, behavioral, and investigative knowledge wrapped up into one person. And so when I walk into a crime scene, I'm able to reconstruct that crime scene based on the evidence.
Oh,
And then
okay.
now I'm seeing what happened between the offender and the victim.
But
Love
other
that
people
movie.
have done that too, though, Paul.
They do that, but for whatever reason, I think because I relate to the victim so much, and then I disturbingly can put myself into the offender's mind and see what the offender is experiencing to help me
It's an eye detector. He's like that character in the Hannibal Lecter movies.
unique, having the forensic science, behavioral, and investigative knowledge wrapped up into one person. And so when I walk into a crime scene, I'm able to reconstruct that crime scene based on the evidence. And then now I'm seeing what happened between the offender and the victim.
But other people have done that too, though, Paul.
They do that, but for whatever reason,
You're more
I
of a
think
Post
because I
Malone.
relate to the victim so much, and then I
Complete opposite of Paul
disturbingly
Holes.
can put myself into the offender's mind and see what the offender is experiencing to help me assess this case and who it is I'm trying to find.
He's got it
and
on
then
both
that goes
levels.
back to the disturbing aspects of the trauma, is kind of reliving being the offender.
Wow.
Go ahead.
I'm curious, so much
This guy's over here like, man, you're taking all my chicks. And he thinks Paul Holes might be a serial killer. He's like,
of the message you receive from people in life is just move on. But to investigate cold cases is the very opposite. And some of the cases you were working on weren't even assigned to you. You just were interested. Where do
oh, Will Graham, sorry. I'm like, oh, that character from those Hannibal movies. Will Graham is his name.
you think that deep interest in these
Sorry.
old wrongs comes from?
Well, there's really, it's twofold. One, it's the ultimate challenge, trying to figure out, who committed to this crime. But also, I have become so obligated to the victims. And the audacity that somebody took this victim's life
Ouch,
and then
ouch.
has continued to live a
Ouch,
normal
ouch,
life
on my hair.
since, that person doesn't deserve that life. And so it's
Wedding Crashers.
I
Good
went
movie.
after him.
That's what gets me about Joseph James D'Angelo, the Golden State. You said he's a father, a grandfather, a fishing boat in the driveway, a Volvo in the garage.
Right.
Just your normal kind of guy. That's what freaks me out about.
Listen to that explanation. Isn't that scary? Listen to this.
So obligated to the victims. And the audacity that somebody took this victim's life
In a minute, she's going to explain D'Angelo.
and then has continued to live a normal life since, that person doesn't deserve that life. And so I went after him.
That's what gets me about Joseph James D'Angelo, the Golden State. You said he's a father, a grandfather, a fishing boat in the driveway, a Volvo in the garage.
Right.
Just your normal kind of guy. That's what freaks me out about.
Well, and
These cases.
these predators, they can compartmentalize their lives and
Yeah.
look
Hey,
like
what's
a
up,
normal
Olivia?
person. Oftentimes, they're not who you think they are, and D'Angelo is a perfect example.
And that little quote there is a perfect example of the tight writing in the book. It's a really great read.
Yeah.
No, when Jamie said there's hot for holes, when I went to meet him outside, he said, we have some hot for holes people in the studio. Great. There's about 10 of them
All
there.
right, that's enough of this.
Truth in the murder of two teen girls in Delphi.
Break it
Today
up.
marks 5 years since the bodies of Abby Williams and Libby German were found on a trail tonight. A retired FBI agent talked about the possible connection between the deaths, a child porn case, and a social media account. News 8's Demi Johnson has covered this story from the start. Demi?
Yeah, in the months and years since the girls were killed, we've seen two sketches, a recording off Libby's cell phone, and now most recently,
Exactly.
the social media profile named Anthony Schatz. Tonight, a former FBI agent shares his take on why some evidence
Uh-oh. Freckle Joy says, I have a fishing boat and a Volkswagen. Uh-oh. I don't know. What's going on here? I think we need to keep an eye out for Freckled Joy. She fits the bill.
Evidence has been made public, and investigators are holding other parts back.
If he was let go after confessing, he was let go after all these documentation and forensic evidence that the FBI and the state police shared, and he was so cooperative. My guess is maybe he was cooperating on something else against somebody else.
All right. This is kind of where I wanted to stop and have a conversation, because we've had this talk before, right? How did they let Keegan Klein go free for 3 years with everything that they found in the search warrant, right? How is that possible? Well, here's a retired FBI agent saying that it could have been part of their strategy. So what I'm thinking is the only reason to come out publicly with the Anthony Shots information is if maybe it went cold. Maybe they continue to use the profile, thinking, well, law enforcement, we're free, because they didn't mention it. Well, I guess I could. Did they mention it in his first interview? I can't remember if they mentioned it in Keegan Klein's first interview or not. I mean, they had to have. So we'll throw that theory right out the window. But I'm wondering if did they make a deal? Is that possible? Or do you think it was really an error that they recently came out and stated it was a clerical error? Excuse me. Verbal judo. Good to see you, Grizz. Who do we got walking in right now? So we got Freckled Joy, who is showing all the telltale signs. She's got the Ted Bundy Volkswagen and the fishing boat, the Golden State fishing boat. Uh-oh. And she lives in the Golden State. Okay, so that's strike 3. I'm calling John Douglas right now. So maybe I was wondering if maybe they were waiting to see if the profile just kind of died down or if people stopped using it. But I'm sure if they mentioned it in Keegan Klein's interview, he would have alerted anybody that was using it, like, hey, we're not using that profile anymore. They're on to us. To the shredders. Growing crazy. Wow. I recommend grounding yourself. Go camping. What's up, Melissa? Julie Barnes, curious to why KK wouldn't skip town immediately after he was confronted by law enforcement with the CSAM. How would he possibly think he'd get away scot-free? Well, he mentioned that he should have packed a bag and that he was effed in his arrest warrant. They said he packed a bag, he was going to leave, he should have never come back. And then he shortly moved. He moved shortly later. That later that year, he was out of that state. Pretty much as far as you can get. Boy mom, hello. All right, let me continue this.
And they didn't want to bring that to anyone's attention.
That's what retired FBI agent Michael Tapman believes happened in the case against Keegan Klein. Klein is the man who admitted to creating the Anthony Shots profile, the same profile being investigated by are holding other parts back.
If he was let go after confessing, he was let go after all these documentation and forensic evidence that the FBI and the state police shared, and he was so cooperative. My guess is maybe he was cooperating on something else against somebody else, and they didn't want to bring that to anyone's attention.
That's what retired FBI agent Michael Tapman believes happened in the case against Keegan Klein. Klein is the man who admitted to creating the Anthony Shots profile, the same profile being investigated by Indiana State Police in the murders of Abby Williams and Libby German. But state police didn't share that profile with the public until almost 5.
Well, Freckle Joy, that's pretty much now it's a confession. I'm going to buy a gun on my contract in Texas. So there's a lot of speculatory evidence, but I got my eye on you. What's up, Verbal Judo? Welcome. Welcome to the squad.
5 years after the girls were murdered. They also didn't name Klein as the creator of the account. Those documents were uncovered by Wish TV a day later. Tabman says he isn't sure why.
I don't know that not naming it by name would protect anything. Once the information on that account is out, anyone involved with that would know I need to get off that account.
But he does have a theory about the profile. Tabman says oftentimes child porn cases cast a wide web.
If that account is communicating with girl A from one ISP and girl B from a different ISP.
Growing crazy. Says I garden. Me too. Sorry about that. I went the psychological route with it instead of the practical. I garden, laugh out loud. Why isn't anyone asking why no one has noticed Ari's hat that he always wears? The symbol behind his dark sunglasses is a badge. I don't think it's a badge. I think it's a Route 66 to that goes through Arizona. And I'm pretty sure you can see that on the Bridge Guy video.
At the same time, it would indicate more than one person signed on to that account. So there's probably some digital evidence that would indicate there was more than one person using that account.
Okay, here's Freckle Joy. She is foreshadowing here. I am traveling government employee, just like the BTK. I drive across the country by myself. Typical. The world is crazy, and I'm a single woman driving a long distances. Yeah, definitely carry that thing with you. Hopefully you keep one in the chamber. You know, you need to get to it quickly. So I hope you stay safe out there.
And it wouldn't surprise me in that these child predators do tend to work in groups because they share videotapes and they share methods and they share girls.
Questions have also surfaced over the years about why there were 2 different sketches of possible suspects and if there's more to the video clip investigators found on Libby's phone. Tabman tells me sometimes information is released to see what people know, and to get the answer they're looking for, law enforcement will intentionally leave things out.
And sometimes investigators just hit a brick wall, not because they're doing bad work, but they can't create evidence that is not there.
I also asked Tabman about possible DNA in this case. He tells me if any was recovered from the girls, it would have been run through the FBI. But if the person responsible was never arrested before, they would not be in the FBI system. Tabman says that does not mean they won't be in the future.
Okay, so another thing I wanted to talk about was we know that Richard Allen doesn't have really a criminal past. Okay, so if they're saying that there's more people involved and that there's evidence like DNA, fingerprints, hair, fibers, and we haven't heard of any of that being linked directly to Richard Allen. So what are the odds that you have 2 killers and both of them don't have prior convictions, prior anything leading to a DNA or fingerprint sample? You know, what are the odds of 2 perpetrators fitting that description? Seems pretty rare.
Demi Johnson, Wish TV, Wish TV.
And I'm joined with the one and only Paul Holes, who is also the host
All right, ladies, calm it down.
of The Weekend. Paul,
That's correct.
are you excited?
I'm very excited.
So tell me about what you're taking part in CrimeCon this weekend.
Well, you know, I have a couple of live events that I'm doing. With Oxygen, I've got a new show coming out called The DNA of Murder. So I've got a live event here at CrimeCon where I'm going to introduce the audience to what that show is about. And then I've also got a live podcast with Billy Jensen called The Murder Squad that we're going to do here.
That's so cool. In terms
Kelly.
of The DNA of Murder with Paul Holes, what are some of the new things that you want to bring into a series like that?
Well, with the DNA of murder, this is a concept that I kind of developed with the production company, and it's the way that I work with cases. You know, with the DNA of murder, I'm actually going into law enforcement agencies that have unsolved cases and bringing my expertise and experience to try to see if we can't help them get the cases solved. And part of the show is going to the crime scene and walking the audience through how I interpret the crime scene. And then how that provides investigative leads and how it gives insight into the offender's behaviors.
Right. And who are some of the people that you're working with on the show? Is it with local law enforcement or, changing up?
We absolutely are working with local law enforcement. We're working with victims' families.
Hey, what's up, Chopper? Says, it's scary to think Richard Allen isn't the killer and the killer's still out there. It is. Because, we have those 2 sketches. They've been very vague. About what those sketches represent, what they think the sketches represent. And it's very possible that the older looking sketch is not Richard Allen. And I know if he's the bridge guy, with the hat, the way he looks, I don't know. It's possible that they're confusing things. Maybe they were both dressed very similarly.
But we also have experts coming in. So I've worked with Lonnie Coombs for a couple of cases so far, as well as Yolanda McClary, who's a crime scene expert from Las Vegas.
Yeah, that'll be great for some, OG Cold Justice fans as well to see her.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
she is bringing that Cold Justice contingent over, hopefully.
Yeah. And in terms of, you have so much experience here at Oxygen. We know you worked with Lonnie before for Rebecca Zahau, which is airing, in the Saturdays within this month. But there's been some recent changes with companies like GEDmatch, which was kind of used for the Golden State Killer case to find the alleged suspect, and that trial is still ongoing. But what do you think about, users now having to opt in to have their records accessed and what that means for law enforcement?
Well, on a personal level, I actually don't have any issues with this informed consent stance that GEDmatch has taken. But I think on a bigger picture, it's more how decision makers moving forward are going to take a look at this tool, because it is a balance between public safety and privacy. And I truly believe that once decision makers are educated about what the technique is and what it isn't, they'll understand that the privacy concerns that a lot of people are putting out there really aren't there. And that's part of just moving forward.
Hey, what's up, Tax Cut? Says, there's a photo of Richard Allen that's a dead ringer for the young sketch. Yeah, what if he's the young sketch and somebody else is the older looking sketch?
As a society, as we debate this, we just want to make sure it's an informed debate. Educate yourselves and then make a decision.
Mm-hmm. So kind of balancing that for privacy, but also using it still for these cases.
Absolutely.
Yeah. In terms of the murder, Scott, I know we talked before it launched. Now it's way more than a few episodes in, and we talked with Billy earlier about the Allentowns 4. I want to ask you about your opinion on the Delphi murder update. So do you agree with investigators withholding some of the information, like the manner of death, or what's been going out so far in terms of pushing some new video out?
Right. Anytime you're dealing with an investigation, you're always assessing what can be released to the public and what you have to hold back. And law enforcement, when they hold back information, it's not to keep the public in the dark. It really is to help benefit the case. Now, I can't speak specifically about the inside information, the inside decision making that the investigators involved in Delphi are doing. However, reading it from afar, I can kind of see a strategy develop as they're moving forward. And knowing a little bit about that case, because I briefly consulted with one of the investigators shortly after the Golden State Killer case.
Okay. So let me rewind this. What do you guys think this means?
Yeah. In terms of the murder, Scott, I know we talked before it launched. Now it's way more than a few episodes in, and we talked with Billy earlier about the Allentowns 4. I want to ask you about your opinion on the Delphi murder update. So do you agree with investigators withholding some of the information, like the manner of death, or what's been going out so far in terms of pushing some new video out?
Right. Anytime you're dealing with an investigation, you're always assessing what can be released to the public and what you have to hold back. And law enforcement, when they hold back information, it's not to keep the public in the dark. It really is to help benefit the case. Now, I can't speak specifically about the inside information, the inside decision making that the investigators involved in Delphi are doing. However, reading it from afar, I can kind of see a strategy develop as they're moving forward.
Okay, pay close attention to what he says here.
And knowing a little bit about that case, because I briefly consulted with one of the investigators shortly after the Golden State Killer case, I know that they have a tough investigation ahead.
What do you think that means? Do you think he gave them any advice on that case? On the Delphi case? I mean, he stated here publicly that he spoke directly to investigators. And it was right after that case. So Paul Hull, he comes out in a later interview that I'm going to show you at the end of the stream. And he admits what he got wrong. He admits that he screwed up with the Golden State Killer case, but that he adjusted. He made adjustments and he adapted and he changed his strategy. So him being self-aware and knowing where he needs to make those changes and seeing the confirmation bias that he had, he was aware of that and he made the correct adjustments and he was able to find success and bring this horrendous killer to justice. Okay. So for him to have that track record, of course, investigators involved in the Delphi case are going to want his opinion, like they're going to want him as a consultant, please provide us with some direction. And it was very strange. On his Instagram, you had the post of him out there on the Delphi bridge. Everybody's like, oh my God, Paul Holes is getting involved in the case. Everybody's getting all excited about it. Like this could be big. He's a cold case investigator. And that's what I always wanted for this case was to be looked at through the lens of a cold case. Go back to the beginning. And I have a feeling that he said something, said, hey, you guys need to go back. Maybe some things were misfiled. Maybe it was just some simple things like go and look at everything, things that are in the other folders that may be located here. Look at every piece of information, regardless of where it is or what it's doing, and look at everything. So I'm wondering if he gave that, that advice shortly after. Here we are.
And they're doing everything they possibly can to try to get that case solved.
Yeah, it's a tough case. And so, at CrimeCon here, we see some people stopping at the booth. We know you're the host of the weekend, and a lot of people are excited to see you. What is your favorite part about taking part in an event like CrimeCon?
Yeah, I'm about 42.
I think, my favorite part, and this is what I experienced.
Good to have you, Natasha. Says, I'm almost 40. I think I'm old as fuck. Young people say I'm not old. It's weird, but hi, I just joined. First of all, we're glad to have you. I am in my 40s. I did think that I was old. I was getting old, but simply I was just getting out of shape. Once you get your blood pumping and refresh your body and get back in shape, get your second wind. Yeah, you're good to go.
Last year is just really meeting the people. It's just one of those things where I had no idea something like this existed until I retired. And then it's like, well, who are these people that are actually coming to CrimeCon? And you find out they're just great people. They're interested in the same things I'm interested in. I just happen to be interested from a law enforcement perspective. They're interested from a civilian perspective, but we all have the same goal.
Mm-hmm. And so another thing that attendees get to do is they go to the phone booth over there that's from Oxygen, and they get to pick who they would call that is Oxygen talent if they were, hit with a crime, they're booked, they need some help. So there's Paul Holes, there's Nancy Grace, there's Lonnie Coombs, there's Ice-T, there's the Cold Justice crew, Martinis and Murder. Who would Paul Holes be calling?
Yeah, it wouldn't be Billy Jensen, because I think it'd probably end up having a longer stay in jail if he responded. No, Lonnie Coombs.
Wow, why? Tell me why.
She's got prosecutorial experience. I've worked with her. I'm familiar with her, and so I would be ecstatic to have her represent me.
That's great. Lonnie actually also picked you, and Billy picked Lonnie as well. So I think Lonnie is the person I'm going to end up calling as well, just because it seems to be the safer choice there. Thank you so much, Paul, for joining us. I know you're a busy guy this weekend as the host, and so many panels going on in the podcast. We're excited to see the DNA of Murder and how that goes out. We also can watch Paul Holes now on Oxygen with Death at the Mansion, Rebecca Zahau working with Billy Jensen and Lonnie Coombs. But if you're in
foremost criminal profiler is now giving his insight into the mystery of who killed the those two teenagers in Indiana.
You don't wake up one day and commit a double homicide like this. There has to be some
Teresa.
kind of trail, some type of prior criminal history.
Former FBI Special Agent John Douglas, a.k.a. the Mind Hunter, says that recently released extended audio of the suspect speaking may hold a vital clue, his use of the word guys. What does guys say
Thanks,
to you?
JJ.
Guys,
Yeah, if you guys could hit that thumbs up.
that there may be he may know these victims, or it's
Don't
a person
be a
like
scrub.
if he's dealing with children, girls and boys, he won't say boys, he will say guys. So someone who has
Like a parent, right? You know, guys. Oop, I think I went too far.
victims, or it's a person like if he's dealing with children, girls and boys, he won't say boys, he will say guys. So someone who has interaction with children.
When you say somebody who works with children, a coach, a teacher, what does that say to
Or
you,
a
like
parent.
profession-wise?
Yeah, it was almost how like a school teacher would tell kids.
Abby Williams and her best friend Libby German were found slain near this old rail line in February 2017. Video of a suspect was released at a news conference last month, along with a new sketch of the suspect, showing a much younger man than the previous police rendering. I asked Douglas about the chilling suggestion by cops that the killer might actually have been present at the news conference. It was open to the public.
To the killer, who may be in this room.
We got two JJs. Two JJs can't occupy the same space at the same time. It's too dangerous.
We believe you are hiding in plain sight.
They should also be checking and looking to see people who were here. Now they came up with some reason to leave the area.
Authorities say the release of the new sketch and the enhanced audio has triggered 3,000 fresh tips. Douglas's new book, The Killer Across the Table, spotlights the most diabolical killers he has ever encountered. What do you think of the strategy from law enforcement so far?
I just think they should have been releasing information a lot sooner.
The sketch may be the person responsible for these murders. It is.
Boy Mom says, I'm curious if Guys Down the Hill was to his accomplices. I often wonder that. What if he came up to one of the girls, took the phone, he now has the phone in his pocket or in his hand, and he's telling the guys that may have been hidden back there somewhere, like, guys, get down the hill, like, go get them. And then he just throws the phone, aside. If he had gloves on, he doesn't care.
The person responsible for these murders.
A former federal agent provides insight as state police reveal new clues about the person they believe killed two teenagers along a Carroll County trail more than 2 years ago. It was Valentine's Day 2017 when Abby Williams and Libby German were found murdered. No one has ever been arrested.
Today, investigators released the updated sketch, extended audio, and for the first time, video of their prime suspect, an unidentified man captured by Libby's phone. We've seen the pictures before, but today we saw the man in them walk around.
All right, bees. Good luck to you. When you get out, we'll keep you entertained.
The former railroad bridge. Police want people to look at the snippet of the video and look for mannerisms they recognize. The new sketch is based on this video, and according to state police, the man could be in the sketch could be anywhere between 18 and 40 years old. Shortly after the girls were murdered, police released audio of the man saying,
Honda Wither with AR. Oh, hand with an AR. Honda with AR. Sorry about that. Was Richard Allen at the press conference? The 2019, I have all the photos from everybody that was there, and I can't see him. I don't think he was there.
down the hill. Today, they released what appears to be a longer version of that original clip. Take a listen right here. We've looped it 3 times, and according to police, the man is saying, guys, down the hill.
Good point. Dark Vision says, we assume predators are creepy guys driving around looking to abduct. The majority aren't even known to police, just normal guys working with families. Yeah, they're almost using it. They're chameleons. They're using it as their cover. They're like, oh, you can't see me. Like, look at this family. There's just no way. but they use it to hide.
All right, during today's news conference, Indiana State Police Superintendent Doug Carter addressed the killer directly.
We believe you are hiding in plain sight. For more than 2 years, you never thought we would shift gears to a different investigative strategy, but we have.
Carter went on to say they have likely interviewed the person or someone close to him. Police believe the man either lives in Delphi or visits that area regularly. Police are also looking for a car and the owner of the car that was parked at an abandoned welfare building the day of the murder. Police did not provide a description of that vehicle. Joining us now is News 8's Eric Feldman.
Paul
this
Holes,
is
right?
Very complicated. Another new layer to this long-time investigation. You talked with a retired FBI agent about what the press conference was about today, really.
Yeah, and he's not.
Oh, this is a good one right here.
Not involved with the case, but he was with the Bureau for a very long time, and I asked him what he thinks some of the important takeaways were from today.
It's quick, but listen again. Look now, a man walking. It's the newest information Indiana State Police are releasing to find the killer of 13-year-old Abby Williams and 14-year-old Libby German. If you ask retired FBI agent Doug Coons, this information could help crack open the case.
You can often recognize somebody just kind of by how they hold themselves, by how they swing their arms when they walk. He's got his hands in his pockets.
Coons never worked on this case and now runs an investigative consulting company in Carmel. But he says even though you can't see the face, noticing the walk is entirely possible.
I can recognize
Rhonda with an AR.
My kids who look very much alike, kind of by how they move. I wouldn't have to see their faces to know which one's which.
There's now a sketch of the killer, but it looks completely different from the one first released.
Goat Dog says, "What's up, Sleuth Intuition and chat? I'm 40 myself, but my brain still thinks we're 20 something, which makes for an interesting adventure." Yeah, it does. My best advice would be learn how to stretch properly. Yep, I stretch every morning. Yeah, but I was hanging out with my dad. It was like, I think around the holidays, and my nephew was there. He's really tall and he's in shape and really strong, and we started wrestling, and in order to make sure that I won, I had to like pick him up and like slam him, but in doing that, I swear I almost broke my neck. So yeah, I mean, I felt like my neck was about to snap.
ISP didn't take questions, so we asked Coons why. Coons says it could be the lighting or the angle.
After you hear what we're going to release today,
We showed Coons the press conference from earlier Monday. He says State Police Superintendent Doug Carter's words are key when talking about their confidence in this new sketch.
the sketch, which you will see shortly, is the person responsible for the murders.
There's no ambiguity here. This is the person.
All right, so Coons says you can expect a flood of new tips here to come in with this case, and that police must believe something new that they've released is substantial, because otherwise they wouldn't have had the press conference today. I did ask Coons why it took so long, or it could take so long, to have the audio and video
love the
from
knowledge
Libby
that I've
German's phone be
gathered.
released when we
But
had
man, to be 20
a
again,
picture and other audio, as you were
just to
talking
be able to
about,
run
over
6
a year
miles
ago.
at one time.
And remember, Coons is not part of this investigation, never has been, but he says for the audio component of it that it could have been being cleaned up by
barely
some
walk
sort of
6
tech
miles.
team, and that's why it took a little longer to get that longer version out, but we didn't get to that video component.
Yeah, it was interesting what he had to say, though, is the fact that he was talking directly to this person, and perhaps that person is still in the community or visit that area regularly. So
yeah,
just another new update here. All right, Eric, thank you.
We'll keep following it.
Details within a recent set of transcripts tied to the Delphi murders. The documents revealing yet another investigation tied to a social media account that's believed to have interacted with Libby German and Abby Williams just before they were brutally murdered in a small Indiana town in 2017. And tonight, we've learned that another young girl may have talked with the person behind that same profile, only she lived.
I don't know. That seems like very sarcastic, JJ. New investigative strategy, like looking at old notes.
To tell police her story. News Nation's Max Lewis has the latest.
According to the transcripts, a middle school age girl in Galveston, Indiana, messaged the Anthony Shots account that she wanted to hook up after school. She said her parents wouldn't be home and shared her address. A day later, when she got off the bus, she saw a man in a ski mask peering into her bedroom window.
It doesn't look to me like there's proof for sure that he was the person peeping through the windows.
Police can't prove it was Keegan Klein peeping into that window, and he denied doing it, according to the transcripts. However, investigators say data shows Klein searched members of that girl's family on Facebook the day before the peeping incident. All of this happened just 3 days after Abby Williams and Libby German were murdered in Delphi.
When you're doing the investigation, again, you want the whole picture. You're finding the pieces of the puzzle that you fill in, and it slowly comes together into something that you can recognize.
Former FBI agent Doug Coons has not worked on this case, but has investigated many others. He says the transcripts have provided a lot of interesting but circumstantial information. While Keegan Klein and his father Tony Klein have been at the center of the Delphi investigation, Coons says the information found in these transcripts proves nothing.
All this stuff is great, but you still need that key piece that you take it to court, and then all that will matter.
Investigators eventually raided the Klein.
Okay, so did law enforcement find that one piece? Like, yeah, we have all the circumstantial evidence over here. We have circumstantial evidence over here. Now they made an arrest. They arrested Richard Allen for murder, for 2 counts of murder. So is somehow he that one piece that makes everything within Keegan Klein's transcript suddenly mean something or now relevant?
Home in Peru nearly 2 weeks after the Delphi murders. That resulted in numerous child porn charges against Keegan Klein. Still, despite what transcripts show Keegan told a reporter, officials don't know if Tony Klein had access to that Anthony Shots account.
It seems to me like there's a lot of pieces around the periphery, but they're still looking for that one that goes in the middle.
Fire in the bowl, Frank.
Anya Kane and Kevin Greenlee are the hosts of the Murder Sheet podcast, and they were the first to obtain these transcripts. They're both joining us live again tonight. Welcome back to both of you. So when you read these transcripts, what were your key takeaways?
Interesting, Lauren.
Horrifying transcript because it really ties this child sexual abuse materials case that Keegan Klein is facing to the Delphi murders. And it does that through the account, the Anthony Shots account that Keegan Klein sort of had access to. So for the first time, we're really seeing the link between this Anthony Shots profile and the Delphi case that so many people are following and hoping for answers in.
But this is all circumstantial, right? If there was a smoking gun of hard evidence, wouldn't prosecutors have brought the charges?
They would. There's a very compelling web of circumstantial evidence, but we're still lacking that one piece of direct evidence that will put the phone in the hand of Keegan Klein or someone else that will prove that he was the one communicating with these girls and would prove beyond doubt that he was the one who arranged to meet with them that day.
So is he now trying to point the finger at his father?
That's a great question. His father does come up throughout this whole transcript, but I would say in the 2020 police interview, Keegan is very much not pointing the finger at his father. He's pointing the finger at a friend who he previously lived with. In the 2021 interview with the
Anya, his name is Friend One.
reporter, he is more of wobbling on that. He might be saying, well, my dad might have been capable of this, but I don't think he did it. So you see a bit of a wavering in terms of that.
And that he had access to it. He says, my father, yes, I believe he had access to the account, right?
Hey, what's up, Jenny?
He says that oftentimes he and his father would share devices and that he would help his father online because his dad was a little bit less tech savvy.
And this is the first time we may be learning of these transcripts, but there's no new information here that investigators don't know about. So is it possible that they already ruled out this lead?
As of December 2021, when the HLN interview took place, Keegan Klein was at least under the impression that authorities believed that he had something to do with the Delphi case and that his father may have had something to do with the
Goat Doc says wrestling is definitely not something I would try unless it was absolutely unavoidable. Well, I know that now, but at that point, I was trying to prove a point. You know, we're bringing up those old war stories, and sometimes those little whippersnappers, they don't believe you. You know, like, oh, your little ass can't do anything, and then you got them flipped upside down and smashed on the ground. But when you're old, you can't do that stuff because while you're picking up, your neck is literally detaching from your body. So, yeah, if you're over 40, don't do that.
Delphi case. So that's pretty recent. And sources that we have tell us that the Kleins remain the focus of this investigation at this point.
So is there any evidence that ties Klein to the person outside the girl's window? And even if it was him peeping into the house, does that mean that he's a murderer of these other girls?
Well, the closest thing to direct evidence that ties him to that incident is that earlier that day he communicated with the girl who was the victim of that incident and had gotten her address. And then shortly after that is when this peeping Tom incident occurred. And it would seem to be pretty coincidental.
Yeah, Natasha. Nancy Grace has that been there, done that voice. You know, like, you ain't getting shit past me. I've been there, done that. Just listen to me. Nobody's listening to you. Just listen to me.
Someone just happened to go there to peep right after this person gave Tony Klein or Anthony Klein or Kagan Klein that address.
And basically what you're seeing is a pattern here, right? So when girls are communicating with this Anthony Schatz account, bad things are happening to them. And so police are going to be looking at who had access to that account.
Right. And are police any closer at this point to solving the murders of Abby and Livy? And have you learned anything new about the case since we spoke to you, aside from these transcripts?
Right. Yeah, we've been definitely continuing to follow up on the lead and speak to people who know the Kleins and know the family and are familiar with
all
that.
day, every day, Natasha.
And I would
all
say
day.
that we feel that the transcripts show that police are definitely on a certain path and seem to have an increasingly strong circumstantial case here. But I think time will tell how far along they are at this point.
Well, this is certainly a development that sheds light for all of us, and we appreciate your time tonight, Kevin and Anya. Thank you.
Absolutely no one refused.
Oh, wait. I want to say something. I think I'm about 99.9% sure that Kevin Greenlee is related to George Washington, the first president. I'm almost either that or Ben Franklin. I can't figure out which one it is, but I'm almost 100% sure he's a direct lineage.
Of us, and we appreciate your time tonight, Kevin and Anya. Thank you.
Absolutely no one refused a lie detector test. That is a very big misconception.
Me too, Vanessa.
The sister of one of the Delphi murder victims is trying to debunk rumors about the case, particularly that her family has been uncooperative with the investigation.
Coming in, we've still had so many rumors, and I know this video probably won't fix them.
Kelsey German's sister, Libby, was killed along with
What's up,
her
EL?
friend Abby Williams in February 2017 while they were on a hike in their small town.
EL says Kagan talked to Libby on that day, but what was said? What was their convo? Yeah, they never really said. He just says that he was supposed to meet her there and she never showed up.
In Indiana. Their killer remains a mystery to this day. Kelsey said in a live stream on her YouTube page that she has heard disturbing and misleading information about the investigation. She said claims that her family is hiding information from police are just wrong.
We've been very open and give the police everything that we know. Absolutely anything we can give them, we give them. Lie detector tests, we've given them DNA, we've given them
that's right.
all the information that we have, and they do the same for us. So
another rumor she took on was why Libby's phone pinged from more than one.
Miss Dog Lover says, don't try to do a cartwheel if you're over 40 either. Not good even as a former gymnast. That sounds like solid information there.
One tower after she was killed. Kelsey says it has to do with the placement of service towers.
The town is so small that if you move to one side of the house, your phone will switch towers sometimes. So it's not like her phone was moving around town. That didn't happen.
Local authorities are desperate to find the man in this video, which they say was the last video taken by Libby on her cell phone the day she went missing. Indiana State Police released the video and composite sketches earlier this year, hoping someone could identify him. They floated the theory that the
Tax Cut says peepers are serial killers. But I think they are potential serial killers because it's almost like what they're doing is they're accumulating the nerve, to do what they really want to do is get in there and kill somebody. So they build it up. First they're looking, and then they're videotaping, and then next thing they know, they found a key or a way into the home. They're rifling through the stuff. They're watching people sleep, and then usually a lot of times these peepers, after they've gone past the point of no return, and that's usually watching their victims sleep or something, they wake up, and they're startled, and that's the moment. It's almost like they wanted them to wake up. But I've seen it in a lot of these cases. From what we learned, that happens a lot. It builds up and builds up. I think Ted Bundy was one of the serial killers who really explained it best, that it was just never enough. He needed more and more and more. If he had gone across the line, it didn't matter because now there's a new line that he's planned to cross.
killer is lurking among the good citizens of Delphi.
Directly to the killer.
What's up, Tommy?
Who may be in this room. We believe you are hiding in plain sight. We likely have interviewed you or someone close to you.
Authorities have received thousands of tips about this case, but the
Freckle Joy
families,
says she's a
still
fake
grieving
bitch.
their losses, are hoping people will focus on the facts to help get these girls justice.
I'm hoping that this will make sure that the new people will listen to what the family's saying rather than getting dug in and stuck to the rumors. So hopefully that doesn't happen.
For InsideEdition.com,
Hopefully.
I'm Mara.
Here to discuss just the heartache that everyone goes through, considering if they live through
The fake outrage. That's what it is, huh?
That's absolutely correct.
That tone of voice.
This is where, law enforcement has an obligation to do everything they possibly can to get the family an answer. It doesn't bring the loved ones back, right? But it most certainly is something that we need to get an answer, and then there's the public safety component. The type of crime that this individual did is something that may be repeated, and this individual is a dangerous man, and he needs to be taken off the streets, and he needs to be prosecuted.
Oh, Freckle Joy, that reminds me. Have you guys seen those YouTube thumbnails where the people, they cover their mouth? They're like, oh, I'm shocked. It's like shocking. Or they, they have their eyes wide open and their mouth wide open, like, oh my God, I can't believe what I'm seeing.
To the full extent of the law.
And you
Like, what is
understand
that?
it more than most. A mind that would do something like this is capable of it. You say they're able to stop this type of behavior for a chunk of time.
Absolutely. And that's what, I've personally seen with various individuals that I've looked at for my cases is, there are individuals that are more regular in terms of the crimes that they commit. They're periodic. Then there are individuals that will do crimes in clusters. And, this goes to personality types. This goes to what's going on in their lives. Is there a certain type of stress that they're experiencing, a loss of a job, a divorce, and then they strike out at innocent individuals.
I wonder if anything like that was going on with the current person in custody, Richard Allen. I wonder if anything was going on in his life, because that is a pattern that I've noticed with a lot of these cases that I've covered or that I've read into. There's something bothering them, and they take it out on innocent people, instead of the person that's actually causing them the stress or the thing that's causing them the stress.
As a result of that.
You talk openly in your book about being so dedicated to this, to the victims and to their families, but at a cost with your own personal life. And by no means are you saying this is easy.
No, well, it's not easy. You know, these are horrific crimes, and you know, everybody working this case, you know, what they have been subjected to as a professional side is of course going to be taking its toll as they continue to try to solve this case. You know, but it doesn't compare to what the family has gone through, and that's really what the important part of this is, and it's really to try to keep, you know, law enforcement on the right track to make sure that they get the answer. And again, it's not going to bring the loved ones back.
And you say that an investigator is wrong until they're right. What do you mean by that?
Well, you know, when you have an unsolved case, you know, there's all sorts of investigative leads that come in.
Miss Thing, yes, Paul, anything you say. Kind of like her, she's like, Paul, you sit over here.
And either from witnesses, various tips, even
you sit by me.
Physical evidence. And as you march down those investigative leads, you develop individuals that you think are potentially responsible. And sometimes,
hey, what's up outside of the grid?
End up thinking, well, I've got the right guy here, only to have something like a DNA elimination occur. But part of the complexity is that we are so reliant on circumstantial evidence, and you have to be. I mean, that's just part of us as humans, is trying to evaluate the world and the case. And sometimes you can be blind to the evidence and the circumstantial evidence. You think, oh, I've got this bit of information, and it adds up. This is the guy. But then there's other aspects that don't seem to add up as much, but you have a tendency to ignore that.
Confirmation bias.
And I've done that.
Because the desire is to want to catch the bad guy, and you eliminate what doesn't fit with your theory, and you bring in what does.
It's bias.
And you say for 2 years you had the wrong guy with the Golden State Killer. You thought, this is him, I know I have him.
Yes.
And then you didn't.
That's just it, and that's where in that particular case I kind of chose the details within the case file that matched this guy, and there was details.
Got to take the good with the bad.
I said, well, I can excuse that. I can make it, come up with a reason why that doesn't work. And then ultimately, the DNA evidence showed I was wrong. And that's when, I stepped back and I reassessed. and there's a great article out there by Dr. Ross on criminal investigative failures.
Do you want any wine, Paul?
A trap that all investigators can fall into.
Here, let me top you off there, buddy.
It's you make the failure by picking a suspect and trying to make the evidence fit. And what you need to do is have the evidence and see if the suspect fits the evidence. So that's something that I learned the hard way.
It's that simple.
And Becky, it reminded me a little bit of how you post every day.
Well, guys, we are all out of time. I got the dreadful notification, so I have to go take care of some things. But we will close her out. Appreciate everybody for stopping by, hanging out. All you new members. Shout out to the replay crew. Make sure you hit the thumbs up. Don't be a scrub. Don't be coming in here like, oh, this was such a cool live stream. I'm not hitting the thumbs up. Do it. Do it. Do it. Later, Freckled. Bogey. Yeah, be good. Hope all is well. Julianne, hello. Verbal, thanks for joining members. We're going to get together very soon. Peace out, Grows. Growing crazy, as in gardening, not going mad. Glad we cleared up that controversy. Thank you, D. Olivia. J Cubed. D. Mel from Cold Truth. Shout out to Cold Truth. Go check out her channel. Peace and love. Thank you, Jamie. Yep, enjoy the rest of your day. I'm going to go fly around my new drone, try to figure it out. Well, I figured out how to fly it this morning. Me and my wife went on a walk and took it to the park. Now I just got to figure out the camera part. Deuces. Have a good one. Thanks for hanging out. Good day, Tax. Aw, Miss Thang. Blush, 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 blush. You're sweet. What's up, Teresa? Hope you're doing well. Wanda, hello. Oh, it's good to see you, Haley. At the scene with Haley. We're gonna have to do another call-in show and see what you've been up to. Nice. Yeah, we might take a look at the Cameron Myers and Sitlali Avalar case. It's out here in Arizona near me. I might drive into Mesa and see if I can get some footage out there. Still waiting on a cause of death. PJK. Catch the replay. Yeah, Outside the Grid, they put out some good content. You should check them out as well. Always plead the fifth. And hit the thumbs up. Alright guys, I'm out of here. Really appreciate everybody who caught the live stream, participated in the chat, and who happens to be watching on replay. Leave a comment. Peace out, guys.